Welcome in, my friends, to another episode of Fantasy Football Picks and Bets presented by PrizePicks. I am your girl, stepmom Lauren. That's how you can find me on all the socials. Lauren Carpenter here, and we have a jam-packed episode for you today. We are heading into week 2. This is so very exciting. Week 1 is already in the books. Kind of hard to believe, but we have some injury updates. We also have some streaming options, just in case you might have missed out on those waiver claims. I know it is a bummer every time you wake up and see that notification. And I am also going to answer just a few questions from you, the people. But first, if you have not signed up for PrizePicks yet, what are you waiting for? Go head on over to PrizePicks.com and use the promo code MMN for Mayo Media Network, or maybe Mayo Media Net, because that's how you can find us on the socials. But whatever, MMN. Go ahead and sign up. If you use that promo code, you get your deposit matched up to $100. So pretty great. There's lots of fun things that you can do, including the 7-Eleven challenge. That's right. If you missed last week's 7-Eleven challenge entry, that's okay. There are still prizes that you can win each week. And we can just get right into that because the 7-Eleven challenge is super fun. I got 4 out of 5 last week correct, as did Pat Mayo. We both missed on 2 different players, and we did not get the 5 out of 5, but that is okay. Now, if you're not familiar with the 7-Eleven challenge, it's very easy. You just pick 5 over-unders. Just make sure they're not for a Monday night game because the contest will be done by the end of Sunday, so make sure they're not Monday night matchups. Pick 5 over-unders and then change that bet amount to $7.11. That is how PrizePicks will be tracking this every single week. And then you'll see my smiling face on Mondays when I go over some leaderboard stuff, some fun things that have happened. But yeah, it's great. It's a fun game. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to tell you what my 5 over-unders are that I have picked out for week 2. I do want to do a bit of a disclaimer here. I have a Thursday night player here. Now, I don't necessarily recommend staying away or targeting Thursday night people, but just so that you're aware, if you do have someone in your 7-Eleven challenge on your 5 over-unders that starts on Thursday, that means the rest of the week is locked in. So you can't make any changes on Sunday if someone, let's say, is questionable or is hurt or whatever. So just make sure that you know that prior to submitting a lineup if you have any players from that Thursday night game, of which I do. So let's get right into it. As you can see, I am going with Teddy Bridgewater here, and I'm actually going to bring him up a little bit later in the show, but I am setting him at the over at 249.5 passing yards versus Jacksonville. And the reason why is that he looked very good in week 1, so that is promising, but they're playing Jacksonville, and Jacksonville allowed 291 passing yards to Tyrod Taylor. Really? Okay. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and think the safe play for me here is going to be Teddy Bridgewater. I really like this one. The next one I'm doing is Jameis Winston with the over on 1.5 passing touchdowns versus Carolina. He threw 5 touchdowns last week. So even if he regresses just a little bit, I feel pretty good about that sub 2 touchdowns. That's all you have to do in order to get the correct over on this one. So I'm smashing the over on 1.5 touchdowns. And this is the Thursday night player I have is Antonio Gibson. And this is way too intriguing for me to pass up. But I'm taking the over on Antonio Gibson on 1/2 of a touchdown versus the New York Giants. So I can't stay away from that. If you can and you have another one you'd rather submit, go for it. But I love the over on this for Antonio Gibson. I'm also targeting Allen Robinson. I'm taking the over at 68.5 receiving yards because they're playing the Bengals. So this could be a pretty high-scoring affair if we looked what happened between the Bengals and the Vikings last week. That ended up going into overtime, which was a super fun, crazy game. And in that game that Allen Robinson had against the Rams, he still managed to put up 35 receiving yards against that Rams defense, which is, I don't know, really, really good. So I like Allen Robinson here. I know Andy Dalton is still going to be the starter, so I'm doing it. I'm taking the over on Allen Robinson at 68.5 receiving yards. And last but not least, I'm really sorry. I know this is going to hurt people's feelings, but Michael Pittman, I'm taking the under on 44.5 receiving yards. I know this may come back to bite me in the tuchus, but if it does, then oh well. This is why we love fantasy. This is educated guessing, everyone. But Wentz seems to be looking for Zach Pascal. And yeah, the Rams defense is really good, like I mentioned before. So I have a feeling that Michael Pittman is going to have a pretty quiet game. So I'm going to take the under on 44.5 receiving yards for Michael Pittman. Now, again, everybody, it's very easy to play this game. All you have to do is pick 5 over-unders as long as they're not from the Monday night game. Change that bet amount to $7.11 in order for them to be able to track your progress throughout the week. If you haven't signed up for PrizePicks.com, again, it's very easy to do. There's a link in the description of this video, or you can go to PrizePicks.com and use the promo code MMN to get your deposit of up to $100 matched. It's free money, and there's all sorts of fun things that we come out with every single day on other things, not just the 7-Eleven challenge. So let's have fun with this. I'm so excited that football is here, and it's real football we get to talk about because we are heading into week 2. But some of the unexciting things that we have to talk about as well are injury news. Gross, boo, hiss. Nobody likes to talk about injuries. Unfortunately, we do. And if you haven't heard the news yet, Raheem Mostert, who got hurt very early in week 1, he tweeted out himself that he is having season-ending knee surgery. At first, this was going to be an 8-week type of deal, but unfortunately, no, this is season-ending for him. So the 49ers are likely going to be activating Trey Sermon, who was a healthy scratch. Also a head scratcher, if you will, because that was just strange. So I like Elijah Mitchell. If you were able to get him up off of waivers, good for you. And I also like Trey Sermon. So interesting news to keep your mind on when it comes to the 49ers. They're cursed when it comes to injuries. So, ugh. And the Saints, they have some COVID issues. I think it was 6 coaches, assistant coaches, not any coordinators, as well as Michael Thomas. They all tested positive for COVID. As far as I know, all the coaches were vaccinated. I'm not sure about Michael Thomas. So they just have a little bit more stringent protocols. This isn't changing anything for the Saints moving forward, but it's just something to be aware of that's floating around in the atmosphere. Another sad news, Jerry Jeudy from the wide receiver Broncos, he is on IR with that high ankle sprain. I've heard anywhere from 4 weeks to 6 weeks to 8 weeks. So keep your eye on Jerry Jeudy. I really like Tim Patrick. And then the home run play here would be KJ Hamler for me. And more sad news. Oh, I'm just depressed now. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he is on IR. This horrific hip injury that I cannot pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. Popped in and out of place. He's expected maybe 8 weeks. This could be season ending. We don't really know. But if you're rushing to the waiver wire or rushing anywhere at all to pick up Cam Newton, don't. Ron Rivera has already made it very clear that he is happy with Taylor Heineke and he is happy with Kyle Allen as his backup quarterback. So there has been no new developments when it comes to that. He was pretty intense, very, straightforward when it came to his thoughts on what that was. He's happy with his quarterback room. So no Cam Newton news heading back to his former coach and Ron Rivera for the Washington football team. Now, this is going to be interesting news. 2 players I want to bring up. Evan Engram is the tight end for the New York Giants. He is not going to be playing in Thursday's game. He is still dealing with that calf injury that he suffered in the last game of the preseason. And Saquon Barkley is officially listed as questionable. He was limited in walkthroughs. This is a short week. I'm nervous about this, but as far as we know, as of now, recording this show, he is expected to play, and hopefully he gets a little bit more touches, he gets some more snaps, but either way, it's a little upsetting to start your season if you took the risk on Saquon Barkley. I still like him season long, but just keep your eyes on his status as we head into week 2. Also, Odell Beckham Jr. is out for week 2. He was questionable. They just decided to give him another week of rest, so he is out for the Cleveland Browns. And finally, Rashad Penny, running back for the Seattle Seahawks behind Chris Carson. He's going to be out for about 2 weeks dealing with a re-aggravated calf injury. So if you do have Rashad Penny, maybe he was like a flex look for you. He's going to be out for 2 weeks, so keep that in your mind. Pop him over to IR and see if you can, maybe plug somebody else in. And speaking of plugging people in, it is never fun when you have your heart set on a guy. You just do everything you can. You put the fab dollars in. You make sure that you're the first one to put that claim in for a player. And then you wake up on Wednesday morning and you feverishly check your waiver claims, and they were unfortunately unsuccessful. I hate it. It happened to me in most of my leagues. It was pretty junky. But that doesn't mean that the week is over. Nay, first thing you need to do, go and look to see who your teammates dropped in order to pick up some other players that are on the waiver wire. For example, in one of my leagues, somebody dropped Brandon Ayuk. No, I went and snagged him immediately because I believe in Brandon Ayuk. I think week 1 was just a very strange off game. So that is a really good example. There could be a rage drop. There could be somebody that maybe just doesn't believe in it. Check out who your league mates dropped, first and foremost. And second, let's go ahead and dive into some players that could still be available on your free agency, as it will. And so I'm calling this segment the streamers / dumpster dives. But first, let's go ahead and go into the quarterback streamers. If you are one of those people that likes to wait on quarterback or stream the position, it's tough, but it's not the end of the world. So there is one name that really stands out to me here, and this is going to be Teddy Bridgewater, like I mentioned in the 7-Eleven challenge earlier in this show. I was going to say earlier today. Technically, it is earlier today, but earlier in this video probably would be the more appropriate phrase to use there. So earlier in this video, so Teddy Bridgewater completed 28 passes on 36 attempts for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. That was in his week 1. Okay, now we're going to look at who he's playing this week. Like I said, it's Jacksonville, who literally made Tyrod Taylor look like the second coming of, like, Tom Brady. I'm being exaggerating there, or I'm being sarcastic, I should say, and exaggerating, but you know what I mean. So Tyrod Taylor was able to throw for nearly 300 yards. It was 291 yards. So I like this a lot. I think that Teddy Bridgewater can be productive for you in fantasy. So if you need someone that you need to, maybe you had Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe you stream the position, whatever, pick up Teddy Bridgewater. He's rostered in roughly 14% of leagues. So he is still widely available if you need someone to plug in for that position. And speaking of Tyrod Taylor, he is also another quarterback that I am interested in taking a look at. He did have 40 rushing yards as well in week 1, which was pretty interesting. But they are facing Cleveland. And they went into a shootout with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I understand the Chiefs offense is not nearly the same thing as the, Houston offense or the Cleveland offense, and it's going to be a little bit different. But Tyrod Taylor still held his own. He is only 7% rostered. So he is a guy, if you are desperate and you need someone to plug in who should be productive for you, look no further than Teddy Bridgewater, and if you're super desperate, try Tyrod Taylor. Again, only 7% rostered, only 7% rostered, like the Rastafarians. I don't know if he does that, likely not, or he would be suspended, but, hey, you do you. So the other position that some people like to stream in fantasy football is the tight end position. Now, I'm warning you, tight end positions are gross. Streaming the position is hard. And the waiver wire landscape when it comes to tight ends is usually the equivalent of a dumpster fire. So just have that knowledge going into it. But there are at least 2 names that you can look at. One of them is likely rostered. He's at 31% roster, quote, ownership, if you will. And this is Juwan Johnson. He is the wide receiver / tight end because he was, a converted wide receiver to tight end for the New Orleans Saints. He only saw 12 offensive snaps, but Jameis Winston found him twice in the end zone, and he was incredibly productive. Jameis Winston also sang his praises. So that to me says chemistry. That to me says trust. And Jameis Winston is really trying to revamp his career, redo his identity, and he doesn't want to be that 30 for 30 guy. So I think he may be looking for Juwan Johnson a lot more than people may be giving that credit for, because I've heard a lot of fluky terms running around there. I don't believe that. I think Juwan Johnson can get involved. It could be more boom or bust, so be aware of that. Again, that is 31% rostered, so may not be available, but check it out. But for the Dallas Cowboys, the big player was Blake Jarwin. I thought of it in my head, and then I got sad a little bit, but he suffered a season-ending injury last year, and Blake Jarwin was the hotness coming into 2020. Unfortunately, he has now been usurped by the other tight end in Dalton Schultz, who is only 2% rostered. Now, if you are desperate, which is what this is about, is getting a warm body that can produce for you, Dalton Schultz has that opportunity. Now, his ceiling is not incredibly high because there is Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, there's Ezekiel Elliott, but he still has those targets. And actually, he was targeted 6 times and caught all 6 passes. So it is possible he could find the end zone. I'm not sure, but at least you can get some points if you are desperate to plug somebody in at tight end. Again, Dalton Schultz, tight end for the Dallas Cowboys at 2% rostered. So let's go ahead and do defenses, which I know is very popular. I prescribe to this. I encourage it. Stream your defenses, my friends. Stream. Don't just stick with one and forget about it, because there are some juicy matchups each week that you can switch those defenses out for. And you want to have a revenge game, you want to have a get-right game, look no further than the Green Bay Packers. Yes, stinky. It was a terrible game against the Saints. They were embarrassed, horribly embarrassed. They had to eat a lot of crow after that game, but they're playing the Lions, everybody. So if you want a get-right game on both offense and defense, it's the Lions that you want to play in the following week. So I really like the Green Bay Packers. They are about 30% rostered, so they should be available, or could be available, excuse me. But the team that will most likely be available is going to be the Bengals. It's gross again, but I like the matchup. So if you're into kind of taking that risk and streaming that for some high upside from your defense special teams, the Bengals are only 1% rostered. You know, and it's just, ugh. All right, so let me tell you why. They're playing the Bears. Even as I'm saying it, it's really hard for me to say it. So if you don't trust me on the Bengals, I 100% understand, because I kind of don't trust myself here, but I'm looking at the matchup strictly. Okay, the Bears' offensive line is catastrophically bad, and Andy Dalton is the starter right now for the Bears, okay? So there is some opportunity for the Bengals defense to be able to step up and get some sacks and get some turnovers, and that is what is going to score you some points with your defense special teams. So if you're in deeper leagues, it's kind of a desert out there when it comes to your defense special teams. You may want to try and go for the Bengals. Take some stomach medicine and hold your nose and maybe not watch the game and just pray and hope for the best. But Bengals, 1% rostered. They are a viable streaming option in week 2. I still don't love it, but it is, again, desperate times. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And speaking of desperate times, let's go ahead and jump right in from our streamers to our dumpster dive options. And again, if you missed out on your guys from your waiver selections, I am sorry. The pain is real. The struggle is real. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. However, I'm here to give you some options that could be available in free agency that you can pick up and plug in for week 2 if you are in need for those positional players. First and foremost, Kenny Gainwell, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mentioned him in the waiver wire episode earlier. He is still only 26% rostered. He's under that 30% mark, which I like. And I kind of feel it a little insulting calling Kenny Gainwell a dumpster dive, because I don't think he is. And he's one of those I think you can pick up and stash in case something happens to Miles Sanders. So they're playing San Francisco. He could be an intriguing flex play, but I do like the ability to have Kenny Gainwell there. Another one that I think is a little bit less exciting is going to be Carlos Hyde, but he's more readily available. He's about 18% rostered. He is the RB2, if you will, I guess, for the Jacksonville Jaguars under this super now confusing situation with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. I don't like it at all, but he seems to be productive, much to the heartbreak of James Robinson managers. Again, he is a guy that you can pick up, play, and he should be getting you points. Again, I don't love that one. Out of the two, I would rather have Kenny Gainwell if it comes down to both of those options. So let's move on to the wide receiver position. Now, there are a lot of options, but in order for me to not make this video 3 days long, I'm just going to stick with 2 wide receivers that I think that you should be targeting that are under 10% rostered. And the first one is Gabriel Davis, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills did not have a great showing against the Steelers. Josh Allen really wasn't on his game. He was missing passes, but Gabriel Davis was targeted, I think, 5 or 6 times. He only got 2 receptions out of it, but that doesn't necessarily matter once Josh Allen gets his head right, which I think he will in week 2. I like Gabriel Davis as a deep play. His ceiling is very high. His floor is also very low. He's one of those boom bust guys, but I really like having Gabriel Davis on my squad just in case I need to plug somebody in, because his ceiling is very high. And I really, really like that when it comes to fantasy. When you're looking for home run hitters, look no further than Gabriel Davis. And the other one, a little bit more on the safety side here, I am still plugging away for Zach Pascal. I know we only have 1 week in the books with the Indianapolis Colts and with Carson Wentz, but again, that's why I chose Michael Pittman as my under, is because Zach Pascal seems to be that security blanket for Carson Wentz. And he looked at him, and he looked at him in the end zone. So if you don't have Zach Pascal and you have some room, he's going to be a little bit more safer option with a high ceiling as well. So those two wide receivers, again, Zach Pascal, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, 8% rostered. Also 8% rostered is Gabriel Davis, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. I like both of those wide receivers a lot. Again, if I had to, sorry, I just smacked the microphone. I was so excited. I'm breaking things. If I had to have my druthers here on which one I'd have, if I have a need on my bench that I really need some big, heavy hitters, a little bit risky, but can give me that big ceiling, I would go Gabriel Davis. For a little bit more safety, I might lean Zach Pascal, So again, I like both of them, kind of hard to choose. So if they are available, I would recommend scooping them up, and I believe both of them are starters this week in week 2 if you need someone to fill in for week 2, a warm body in that position group. Let's say you lost Jerry Jeudy, but you didn't get your waiver claims on Tim Patrick, or you didn't get them on KJ Hamler or anybody else. Who knows? Try it. I'm actually doing that. So if you do, we can lament together if it all goes wrong. And if it all goes right, we can celebrate together. That is the joy of fantasy football. And always remember, when you're looking at your lineups, when you're looking at people on the waiver wire, take in as much information as you possibly can. Make sure that you are up to date on any kind of injury status, any kind COVID, anything. Make sure you are aware of what is going on in the situation. But first and foremost, and most importantly, always go with your gut. It is something I will be harping on for the rest of the season, because your mind is trying to tell you you've learned some subconscious things over the week. And even though they may not be at the forefront of your mind, that's what your gut is trying to do, is help you make connections to things that you may not immediately notice. So always go with your gut. And then before we finish this video, let's hop right into a couple of questions that we have from you, the people. And the first one comes from Colin on YouTube. Colin A., how are you, my friend? But what should you do with Brandon Ayuk? Keep or trade? Okay, I need to unpack a few things here. First of all, keep Brandon Ayuk. Don't trade him. I honestly believe that he is going to have a very successful season. If you don't believe he's going to have a successful season, wait to trade him, everybody. I cannot stress this enough. When you have a player that you just don't know what to do with, you don't have faith in them, keep them on your bench until they have a huge blow-up game, and then you trade them away. If you try to trade Brandon Ayuk now, you are likely to get him at his, anything you get back from him is going to be at the lowest value. You want to trade him away when he is at his highest value, so you can get the best player in return. Otherwise, you're going to be settling for something else. Do you see what I mean? So whenever it comes to trade, remember the stock market, buy low, sell high. Do not trade Brandon Ayuk right now. If you want to trade him, wait until he has a good game. I recommend hanging on to him. So I firmly believe in Brandon Ayuk, and I think week 1 was a fluke, and week 1 is always very, very strange. All right, Steven from Twitter. Hi, Steven. Saquon Barkley or Elijah Mitchell? This is just from Steven, but I can't even count on my hands and toes and whatever how many questions I have gotten about Saquon Barkley and Elijah Mitchell, the start-sit between the two of them. This is frustrating because Saquon Barkley is questionable. He is playing on Thursday, and that means that your spot for that running back is then done. So if Saquon Barkley blows up on your bench, are you going to be upset about it? And if Saquon Barkley does nothing, but you took the risk and started him, how upset are you going to be? This is going to be a question of how sad do you want to be, either benching or starting Saquon Barkley. I believe that he is going to be seeing a few more touches. He kind of has to. It's Daniel Jones against a very good Washington defense. So it's not great. The matchup doesn't look good, but it is very difficult for me to sit someone like Saquon Barkley. On the other hand, I know Elijah Mitchell just had an amazing game. That was because Raheem Mostert got hurt early, and Kyle Shanahan did not have any time to make a game plan around his multiple Kyle Shanahanigans, as we like to call them. They recently signed Trenton Cannon, who was released by the Baltimore Ravens. They have signed him, Trenton Cannon, I should say, to the 49ers practice squad. They also put Trey Sermon as a healthy scratch. Trey Sermon. If I said Trey Lance before, I'm really sorry. I do that all the time. Trey Sermon, was a healthy scratch. And to me, this is nerve-wracking because, yes, I believe that you should have picked up Eli or Elijah Mitchell 100%. But this is where it gets a little annoying, is when do you start him? And when do you start Trey Sermon? I feel you can start Trey Sermon, feel okay about that, but I think that this might be more of a Trey Sermon game than it will be an Elijah Mitchell game, because now defenses have seen what Elijah Mitchell can do, and they have not been able to see what Trey Sermon can do. So I like Elijah Mitchell, but I don't know if I would start him over Saquon Barkley. That is really hard. But again, I'm going to say this, and I'm sorry if I sound too repetitive. Steven, go with your gut on this. Another Elijah Mitchell question we have here from Sarah on Twitter. Antonio Gibson or Elijah Mitchell? Very similar kind of situation we have with a Thursday night game. I am without hesitation going to tell you go with Antonio Gibson. That's one of the reasons I have him on my 7-11 challenge. Even though my lineup is already locked in, I feel very confident about his chances to have fantasy success against the Giants. If you can find a way to get Elijah Mitchell in your flex without sacrificing any kind of points, maybe try doing that. But if this is just going to be a straight start or sit between the two of them, I am going to start Antonio Gibson over Elijah Mitchell. That does not mean I'm going to be sitting Elijah Mitchell for the rest of the season. Don't worry. But I think in this case, Saquon and Antonio Gibson both over Elijah Mitchell. And that's, again, I keep hitting the microphone. Y'all, I mean, these questions just have made me spin my dome here, but that is great because I like that, and hopefully I don't hit the microphone again. But that's all you have for me after I get done breaking things. At least my camera hasn't gone out yet. Whew. But don't forget, make sure, if you haven't already, please like this video if you enjoyed yourself as much as I did breaking my microphone and rambling on about week 2, which is so exciting. And don't forget, please subscribe and turn on the notifications for Mayo Media Net, because we have so much content that comes out every single day. Like, we have another video from Griffin Swanson all about the Thursday night football, everything, the breakdown, the prize picks and bets. This is what we do for you every single day. So make sure you are following us on Twitter at Mayo Media Net. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of that. You guys can also follow me on social media at Stepmom Lauren. You can also find my work at stepmomlauren.com. Everybody, don't forget to set your 7-11 challenge, 5 over-under picks. Set the bet for $7.11. Don't put any Monday night games in there, otherwise it won't count. You will see my smiling face on Sunday, and then you'll also see me on Monday going over that 7-11 leaderboard. Good luck in week 2, everybody. Oh, it's fantasy football season, baby. If we want to cry together, I'm totally cool with that too. Good luck.